like, and it is so important. It's not necessary that, this person who's crying could have
Mm.
been, he's chanting 16 rounds or 20 rounds. It's nothing but his bhakti life where he stopped. Krishna says, like, wherever you stop your bhakti life, in the next
Yeah.
life, it continues from that point. Like, Anil Prabhu, both of us, like in the project management, once
Yeah. Yeah.
you grabbed you, when you're starting another, you start it from the scratch, another new
Yeah.
project. But in bhakti life, it doesn't work that way. It's wherever you left off, that's where it starts off. That's the reason why you find, like, some people are like, you can find them doing amazing kirtans at a young age. You can find sometimes devotees who are like so well versed in things that they can explain some of these things which will just blow away your mind. Like, there's such kind of
Absolutely.
a wonderful devotee. It's got nothing to do with our age, because all these things are very eternal. This bhakti life is very eternal. So sometimes I was amazed at her. And then we had a lovely conversation with this family who spoke about, like, how much they want to do something for Krishna. And I said, like, be in touch and I will just, introduce with them and you can come and serve. And there was another Mataji was like, who came and she was like, again, in tears. And I was like, really surprised. How come it's like in the same afternoon session, and this lady Mataji who was came and she was literally in tears and she was crying. I said, like, Mataji, what happened? She said, Prabhu, I come from South India and I know about Bhagavad Gita, and we come from a family where we are very much into Krishna and Bhagavad Gita and all that. And we were speaking about it. We know about this. And on the way to on the way to Manor, I was just thinking in the evening, I'm supposed to be speaking to my son. I just wanted to speak to my son about Bhagavad Gita. And I was just thinking, what should I speak to my son about Bhagavad Gita? And just as a matter of such a nice coincidence, these things are not coincidence, these are Krishna's reciprocation. If she was saying, like, I was so happy, I was just on the way, I was just thinking in the car when I was driving down here, what should I speak to my son about Bhagavad Gita? And here am I listening to about Krishna and Bhagavad Gita and about all the different messages from Krishna. So I feel very, very glad that we could all listening to all this now have an idea like what I'm supposed to be speak to my child. And she was so happy, and she brought a Krishna book, and the two devotees bought a Bhagavad Gita book. So these kind of things really inspired me so much last week when I say, like, what, this is something, if we can do a little bit of service for Krishna, then our life is made. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Neha Vikramanasosti Pratyavayo na vidyate. Swalpam abhyasya dharmasya traito mahato bhavat. Krishna says, even swalpam abhyasya, even if you do a little bit of service for Krishna, whether you're sweeping the floor of the temple room in Krishna, or whether you're serving Mahaprasadam for Krishna, or whether you're doing anything, Kirtan for Krishna, Krishna says it doesn't matter. Whatever little bit of squirrel help also that you do for Krishna, Krishna says it will save us from the greatest dangers of life and death. Because a devotee of Krishna, he comes out of the cycle of life and death. Because in this material world, no matter how many devatas you go for, whether you up to the level of Brahmaloka, which is the highest in the material world, even if you go there, the thing is, after you enjoy, you have to come back into this material world. So this material world is like a cycle of ups and downs. You keep going to the higher planets, enjoy, come back into the material world. If something goes wrong, again, if you do some unfavorable things, again you will land up into the hellish planets, again come back. So this cycle, we constantly, all of us, are going through this cycle. But anyone who goes back to Krishna Loka, there's no question of coming. He's like come out of that loop. In our computer language, Anil Prabhu, it's like he's come out of the loop. Um,
Yep. Yep.
so, so, so this is Krishna's mercy, like where he's saying, like, even if you do a little bit of service for Krishna, he never forgets that service. And we've seen in this last chapter, right? Muchukunda, he was actually a devotee of Krishna. He forgot about it. But Krishna remembered him and gave his forearm Narayana form darshan. Look at how Krishna is. Then Krishna told him, like, I'm giving you this darshan because you were my devotee in my previous life. So all of us,
But
like, in our
Shyam
own,
Prabhuji, I would say this.
yes,
I would
Prabhuji.
say this project. If you start this project, it doesn't have any risks and it's always on track.
From a project management point of view, that's right. This project has no risk. It's minimum risk, and the project is guaranteed. And
Always on track.
it's always in track. And we had the support of the supreme friend called Krishna, and
Hare
who's not
Krishna.
looking at our faults. He's not looking at our faults. He's only looking at how much we are literally doing for Krishna. I just really loved this particular thing. I'm sure Nagaraj Prabhu will will remember, like in Vishnu Sahasranamam, Nimisha Animisha. Krishna's name is Nimisha and Animisha. Nimisha means, I believe, when a devotee is making mistake, I believe he blinks his eyes so that he doesn't want to recognize the mistake. And Animisha, he opens his eyes when devotees are doing, even offering a flower or a flute or any small thing. Also, he's immediately opening his eyes to see what his devotees are offering to him. So, like we see Lord Jagannath, right? Lord Jagannath he doesn't close his eyes. He's always looking at his devotees 24/7. So this is Krishna's mercy, actually. So if you understand Krishna Bhagwan in the right light, in the right mood of devotion, then we'll understand that he's such a supreme friend. He's our best friend. He's our best well-wisher. And he wants us in the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita and this Krishna Katha is to take us back to KrishnaLok. And I was just thinking, like, when you buy an iPhone, you get an iPhone manual with it. And similarly, when you buy Krishna Prema by listening to KrishnaBook, what we are doing, so KrishnaBook comes with a manual called Bhagavad Gita, just like how iPhone comes with a manual. Similarly, Krishna gives his Krishna Katha and it comes with a manual called Bhagavad Gita. So you have both you can know about Krishna and you can follow the direction by going to Bhagavad Gita. Ajay Prabhu, Krishan Prabhu, Hare Krishna, thank you for joining us. Very nice.
Hare Krishna, Shyam
It's
Prabhuji.
always joyful to see all of our devotees joining together. There was a conversation which was happening. I'm sure Amoga Prabhu, you must have seen in the group. So actually, what really pleased me is that Mataji is like they are trying to realize that people of other religious faiths, they kind of like groom the children right from day one. And so that's the reason why they're so hooked on and so strong with whatever knowledge they're doing, what's happening in the outside world, we can judge by whatever knowledge that they're having. But at least they're trying to teach the children. But in our dharmic faith, we had situation where I seen where even a Brahmin friends, when we were just trying to talk about Krishna, and he stopped and he said, like, don't teach all these things to my child. Let her know whenever she wants to know. And can you imagine, this is something which even a Brahmin daughter, he's talking about his daughter, he doesn't want her to know anything about Krishna because he wants her to know later whenever it is possible for him. So this is the kind of a situation that we are in Kali Yuga, and it is so important. And I feel very pleased, especially when Matajis, like when they realize that they have to give this education to the children and groom them into Krishna consciousness or give them some bhakti life or Bhagavad Gita. It's so important for us to, and because that will make a big difference, because a mother is always with the children. So she'll be the best person to just groom the children at a young age. And I was seeing, we are seeing like Maharaj, Shivaji Maharaj, like, he was groomed by his mother, right? His mother groomed him about facing Dharma and following your Dharma. And then he became such a great ruler, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So this is what happens, especially when the mothers become Krishna consciousness, the children are bound to be follow the dharmic way of life. So it's so important, actually, I felt. Having said that, I would just with your
Hare Krishna, Shyam Prabhu, this is Ashwin here.
Hare Krishna.
Since you are a senior devotee and there are many other senior devotees, can I just ask you or other senior devotees to speak a few words on the unfortunate events in the Patna ISKCON? I am really finding it hard to explain to my son who is just literally trying to get his feet into ISKCON. So if you can spend a few minutes on that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I just vaguely seen some chat somewhere, Prabhuji, about it. I really do not know the intricacies of what exactly happened, but I heard something like even the president also was involved, and there was kind of a physical assault happening in that particular place. That's all I know. I'm not sure if Amaga Prabhu or Nagaraj Prabhu, have you heard about this? So I'm not able to comment.
No, Prabhuji, I do not know anything about it.
There are some really disturbing news in in the media and also on YouTube. So I was asking if somebody can give some sort of explanation how I can
I know sometimes
understand what's happening.
Yeah, sometimes we'll have to, the biggest thing is like when we are trying to tell our people, like our loved ones and everyone about Krishna consciousness, there's suddenly this kind of question props up, isn't it? Like as to, then what about this? Like, how do we explain this kind of thing? I mean, it's in a big world of, where we have, people practicing and coming from, especially in ISKCON, this is like a melting point of people from different religious faiths who are joining us in Krishna consciousness and practicing. So I wouldn't want to just comment just as it is, Ashwin Prabhu. Maybe I'll just look out if I can see something on that just to make sense of
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think
Thanks.
it would be proper of me to just even comment anything on that. But definitely, um, whoever is done that, I'm not sure like what provocation was happened or what has happened actually, because right now I see in India like a lot of, already we are facing a lot of things from other traditions, other religious traditions, how they're kind of breaking idols and things like that. But on the top of that, one thing very, very important is that to stand united. My biggest this prayer to all of our devotees is that this Krishna consciousness is such a precious and a rare thing. Like we do not have, like, Krishna says, right? Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhe. Out of 1,000 among men, hardly one knows perfection. And out of those who have perfection, hardly one knows Krishna in truth. So Krishna consciousness is so rare. So we always, it's not like such a vast thing like everybody is practicing, but it is something so unique and such a highest platform of spiritual knowledge and everything that we're gathering. But sometimes there could be some disturbing incidents happening like this, Shashin Prabhu. I'm sure like you would have heard about it and would have been disturbed about it. But definitely we should be strong. We should be united. Let's not one incident or one particular thing disturb us. And this is where we had to be very, very strong. And I was just reading a few minutes back. One of the three things that Krishna, which is very dear to Krishna, is determination in devotional service. Dhritanishchayaha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one of the qualities that he loves in his devotees is Dhritanishchaya, which means determination, practicing your bhakti life with determination, which means no matter whatever incident happens, that I am not going to be sidetracked. I am just going to be practicing Krishna consciousness, because everybody is going through his own journey of our own realizations, Prabhu. So maybe we may speak about it maybe some other
Yes,
time.
Prabhu.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin Prabhu. Amoga Prabhu, would you want to, or Nagaraj Prabhu? Nagaraj Prabhu is joining us from India. I have no words to say, talk about our Nagaraj Prabhu's devotion. It's another.
Sorry, Prabhu. I was not following up on any of the news in the recent
No
past.
problem. I was just asking whether Mangalacharan would you want to
Yeah,
do? Okay, go ahead, Prabhu, because you stayed back, so as well.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदाङ्कितं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदा कमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागर तं सहगण रघुनाथं त्वां स्वजीवं स्वाद्वैतं स्वाधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललित श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पति गोपीशा गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंचकल्प वंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। दामोदर मास की जय।
Jai, Hare Krishna, that you nicely reminded Prabhu. So, as all the devotees, you know that, thank you, Nagaraj Prabhu, very nicely recited the Mangalacharan prayer. Hare Krishna, Himaji, Himlata ji, and then Sanchita ji, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Wonderful.
Krishna Prabhu and Dhanavad Pranam to all the devotees. Hare
So
Krishna.
nice to have you.
Happy Damodar to everybody.
Happy Damodar to everyone, devotees. And I think for the next week, next Thursday, we're going to do Damodar Rusticum, and then we'll kind of like light the lamp, and then we will all, we'll just take part in that and we'll sing that. And I'm so excited because next Saturday, one of the doctor devotees is singing Damodar Rusticum in the temple, and I'll be playing along with her. So hopefully we'll do that in our our Sangha as well next Thursday for the Damodar Rusticum. But as everybody knows about the this beautiful song of Damodara month actually is very, very precious. Krishna says that of all the months, this Margashira month, this month is very, very precious to Krishna. And anyone who lights even a ghee lamp in their home for Krishna, thousands of sins they get. It's kind of like be removed from our lives. So more than anything, it's out of love that we do for Krishna. So this is one of the most joyful times where we will find it. If you go to Manor 3 times in a day, I think morning, 4:30 and again 7 o'clock, I think. They'll be doing the Damodara Ashtakam. They'll be playing and they'll be offering a lamp for Radha Gokulananda. So it is such a beautiful, blissful. I still remember the first time when I seen the Damodara month and Ashtakam and playing that, and it was so blissful, so blissful. I can't tell in words. But I think next Thursday we will just go through the Damodara Ashtakam and we will go through maybe the meaning, and then we will spend a bit of time on that, definitely. So I'm just looking forward to next Thursday for the Damodar. So with your permission, I will just do a bit of Kirtan and then we will dive into the Krishna book. I hope that's fine with everyone. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvadadari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hangmaj Mataji. Hare Krishna, thank you for joining us.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you.
So we're just going to quick recap and then we're going to dive into this book. So we covered this beautiful chapter, and before we go, just my first invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. As we always mention before the Krishna Katha, we're just remembering the beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti takataha chaktodeham punarjanma naiti mameti swarjana, where Krishna Bhagavan says that one who understands this Krishna Katha, one who's listening to this Krishna Katha, it is so auspicious because this is directly coming from Bhagavatam, which is a literal incarnation of Krishna. So one who's even listening to the Krishna Katha carries so much of auspiciousness in his life that towards the end of his life, he will not come back into this material world, but will go to the supreme planet of Krishna, which is called like Goloka Vrindavan or Krishna Loka. This kind of benediction, no devata can offer, no upadevata can offer this. This only Krishna can offer, how to come out of this cycle of life and death and reach to the supreme planet, because he loves all of us. And we covered this Krishna, the Ranachora. As we all know that Krishna is called by different names, and one of the names that is called is also Ranachora as well, someone who ran away from the battlefield. But for a devotees of Krishna, we have understood very clearly the reason why Krishna has actually left the battlefield, because one of the potencies of Krishna is unlimited renunciation. When we call Krishna as Bhagavan, because one of the things, unlimited wealth, unlimited power, unlimited beauty, and unlimited renunciation, that, he's so detached from all some of these things that happen. And he has left the battlefield, and because he knew that there is the next set of events that are unfolding is Rukmini there's a marriage proposal that is happening for Rukmini, and we've seen that Rukmini has heard about Krishna from Narada Muni and many other people. So she has literally fallen in love with Krishna, that Rukmini has made up in her mind that there's no way that she's going to marry anyone else except Krishna, even though her brothers were looking at getting her married to Sishupala, but Rukmini has made up her mind that there's nobody else that's going to be her husband other than Krishna Bhagwan. And she sends this most trusted Brahmana, who actually has been to go to Krishna and deliver this message. And this Brahmana has come to Krishna, and Krishna, because he came in this form, like anyone of, as a human, in a human form. So even though he's spiritual and completely transcendental, he followed all this Vedic culture, where he kind of the respect that he's given to the Brahmanas, and he's given all the kind of followed all the rituals, and asked the Brahmana, like, what's the purpose for the visit? And Brahmana has given this message that is coming, that has been sent by Rukmini, that she would like to marry Krishna. And then Rukmini it is so beautiful, because here we are following Sanatan Dharma, where we're talking about the Supreme Lord Krishna and Krishna's divine pastimes. We've seen the letters that Krishna has written for the gopis. And now we have read last week about the letter that Rukmini, as Mataji, has written to Krishna. My dear Krishna, and the most beautiful one, any human being who hears it for you will get absorbed in his ear and eyes and everything. So Rukmini has mentioned to Krishna through the letter that that Krishna has captivated her heart. And even though, not to misunderstand, because she sent a letter, because normally women wouldn't send a letter like this, but she has heard about so much about Krishna that she is very much determined. And she has also made up her mind that if she can't get Krishna in this life, then she's going to do all the kind of a tapasa and austerity in order to win Krishna. But she's very determined that it's going to happen. If there is any marriage that's going to happen, that's only going to Krishna. And you find that people in Dwapara Yuga, they are so knowledgeable that here you can see Rukmini, she's directly talking about Krishna, that not even Lord Shiva, who's like called as a Mahadev, which has his, water on his head, which is coming again from the toes of Lord Vishnu, because so he understands that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And Krishna himself proclaimed in Bhagavad Gita, right? Mata paratam nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mayi sarvam idam protam sutre maniganaiva. Krishna himself says, I am the Supreme Lord. There is nothing more superior than me. There is nothing more than life. So when Krishna is giving us any benediction or he's giving us any boons, he needn't have to ask somebody. He is the source of all the Vishnu Tattvas. So everything is coming from Krishna. So she's very knowledgeable, and she's showing a desire. She decided to dedicate her life to observing severe austerity and penances such as fasting and going without bodily comforts. And this is not, and if it is not possible in this lifetime, she's prepared to die from such kind of austerities and undergo similar difficulties lifetime after lifetime. So you can see, like in those days in the Dwapara Yuga, how determined they were and how knowledgeable they are and how much they believed in tapas and austerities and all that. We see in the life of Dhruva Maharaj at the age of 5, right? He goes into the forest and starts meditating on Krishna. So here you can see, like, this is what Rukmini is prepared to do, that if she can't get Krishna in this life, in the next life itself, she's going to do all the austerities and treat Krishna in the next life. So one of the qualities, one of the things, takeaways from this particular chapter that we can get is Dhridanishchayaha. One of the qualities that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in chapter number 12, Bhakti Yoga, Krishna says that Advaita Sarva Bhutanam Maitra Karuna Evacha Nirmamo Nirahankara Samadukka Sukashami Santusta Satatam Yogi Yatatma Dhridanishchayaha. He is telling the qualities of all the devotees that he likes. Someone who's not envious, but is a kind friend to all the living entities. Someone who does not think he's the proprietor. Someone who does not have this false ego. Someone who's very tolerant, someone who's very self-satisfied, and at the same time, someone who's very determined in bhakti life. This is what Krishna allows. And here we find Rukmini has that kind of a determination. So here, after Rukmini's statement, relaying Rukmini's statement to Krishna, the Brahmana tells Krishna, he's urging Krishna, Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty, I'm giving you this confidential message because you can imagine, like, there's nobody around, and he would have trusted this Brahmana so much that, just take it without anybody knowing it, and she's to give it to Krishna. And now it's the Brahmana has read out that letter, he's given this letter to Krishna and giving it for his consideration. And he said, after due deliberation, it is now placed before you for your consideration. After due deliberation, you may act as you please. But if you want to do something, Krishna, you must do it immediately. There is not much time left for action. So you can see, like, Krishna is always put by his devotees into action. Like, he's either saving his fellow cowherd boys or all the time in action. And right from the time when he was born, the action started from then itself. So we are starting another new chapter, which is called as Krishna Kidnaps Rukmini. Another beautiful chapter. So we seen earlier the different kind of Vedic marriages that was happening in those days, and one of the type of marriage is Rakshasa marriage, which means going and kidnapping. So here you can find, like, but we have to understand that everything that Krishna does is completely transcendental, not to be understood at all in the material platform. Because Krishna, one of the name of Krishna is Atma Rama, someone who's always self-satisfied, and there is no need for Krishna to do anything in this material world, because he's in the spiritual world. Krishna is being served by thousands of goddesses of fortune. So there is no need for that. But through this Krishna Katha, he's giving us this nectar with which we can fall in love with Krishna, to understand how great Krishna is. How can we love God if we don't know how great God is? So here, through the Krishna Katha, we can get to know not that how great he is also, but how loving he is towards his devotees, and how he is always reciprocating. Because many times a doubt comes in our mind: does Krishna, does he really understand my heart? Does he reciprocate? Does he understand my feelings? I'm doing all these things, but because our human mind is like that, we're always thinking, like, what am I going to get out of it? Is Krishna responding or not, and things like that. But here we can find that Krishna is always reciprocating. So I will just start off with this, and then we can get into reading of the other next chapter. After hearing Rukmini's statement, Lord Krishna was very much pleased. He immediately shook hands with the Brahmana and said, my dear Brahmana, I am very glad to hear that Rukmini is eager to marry me. Since I am also eager to get her hand, my mind is always absorbed in the thoughts of the daughter of Bhishmaka. Bhishmaka means Rukmini's father. And sometimes I cannot sleep at night because I'm thinking of her. I can understand that the marriage of Rukmini with Sushpala has been arranged by her elder brother in the spirit of animosity towards me. So I am determined to give a good lesson to all of these princes. Just as one extracts and uses fire after manipulating ordinary wood, after dealing with this demoniac princess, I shall bring forth Rukmini like fire from their midst. So we can see that Krishna is a knower of everything, because he's sitting in everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto matasmritir jnanam apohanam. Krishna says, I'm sitting in everyone's heart. So he knows what exactly is happening. It can happen in any part of the universe, but Krishna knows, because Krishna is everywhere. Sarvata pani padam ta sarvato shishiromukam sarvata smriti malloke sarvam abrita tistati, where Bhagavan Sri Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, everywhere are Krishna's eyes, Krishna's face, Krishna's feet, everywhere, every nook and corner. Krishna says, Sarvata pani padam tat. Everywhere is his feet, everywhere is his eyes. So we cannot escape from being seen by Krishna. But only thing is, our material eyes cannot see Krishna. And that's the reason why you can see that Krishna offers Arjuna the divine eyes so that he can see his universal form. So here he's saying that he is reciprocating. He has listened to this beautiful letter from Rukmini, pleading to take her away from there and marry her. So Krishna is very glad, and now Krishna is saying that not only that Rukmini is eager, but he is also very eager to marry. So so Krishna knows how the things are going to be unfolding. And as we know, the very purpose of Krishna, why Krishna comes, is to put an end to all the demonic people, right? Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya cha duskritam dharma samsthapanardaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So any people who are adharmic, any people who are like demoniac, all these things, Krishna has come to put an end to all of them. So here you see, he knows that this has been arranged because of animosity towards Krishna. And he's here, Krishna is saying, I'm very determined to give a lesson to all these princes. So we can see all that, how it's going to happen. So we just wanted to ask, maybe Naraj Prabhu, would you want to read? Maybe first one?
Yes, Prabhu, I'll start.
Yeah.
Krishna, right? Yeah. Krishna, upon being informed of the specific date of Rukmini's marriage, was anxious to leave immediately. He asked his driver Taruka to harness the horses of his chariot and to prepare to go to the kingdom of Vidarbha. After hearing this order, the driver brought Krishna's four special horses. The names and the description of these horses are mentioned in the Padma Purana. The first one, Saib, Saibhya, was greenish. The second, Sugriva, was grayish like ice. The third, Megha Pushpa, was a color of new cloud. And the last, Balaka, was of ashen color. When the horses were yoked and the chariot was ready to go, Krishna helped the Brahmana up and gave him a seat by his side. Immediately they started from Dwarka and within one night arrived at the province of Vidarbha. The kingdom of Dwarka is situated in the western part of India and Vidarbha is situated in the northern part. They are separated by a distance of not less than 1000 miles. But the horses were so far that they reached their destination, town called Kundina, within one night, at most 12 hours.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That's wonderful. There's so many intricate details that are coming to light, isn't it? Like, that Krishna now gets started off along with the Brahmana and you see, to such intricate details to give even the names of the horses and to understand, like, one of us, his driver that he used to use at that time was Daruka. So we can, some of these beautiful incidents, we can just bring to our mind how beautiful this horses must have been. I never seen a greenish kind of a horse. I don't know if you have seen it, but I definitely haven't seen so far. And a grayish like eyes, and you can imagine, like, so in that, because we are talking about a different period of time. We're not talking about this Kali Yuga, we're talking about Dwapar Yuga. And if you remember earlier, when Muchukonda, when he came out to the cave also, he was surprised to see like how the people have become shortened, and like, he was surprised to see like how the world has changed, because as Dwapar Yuga ends and as we're getting at the time when they were slowly approaching Kali Yuga, he's seen that even the people who are also becoming slowly shortened and things like that. So we can see that we are living in a different time, but in the people in those days, the kind of a personalities that they have, or even the horses that they were using and things like that, is a totally different situation. And can you imagine 1,000 miles they just reached in over the night? This is something like really remarkable, unless it's like something like a very fast train or something like that. So it's amazing to see like how Krishna is reciprocating to the letter that has been sent by Rukmini, and immediately he's taking the action. He's keeping the Brahmana by his side and getting started off with it. So it's just amazing to know this. Hare Krishna, Ramnath Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Yeah, that's unmute. You're unmute, Prabhuji. Maybe some audio issue, maybe. Yeah, Ramnath Prabhu, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, Hare Krishna, can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Yeah, look, better late than never. Technical issues on my side. Just continue with what you're doing, okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji. We have just started off with another chapter called Krishna Kidnaps Rukmini.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Okay, anyone? Sanchit Mataji, would you want to read this? Next paragraph.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, I can read. Yeah.
Please go ahead. King Bhishmaka.
King Bhishmaka was not enthusiastic about handing his daughter over to Shishupal, but he was obliged to accept the marriage settlement due to his affectionate attachment for his eldest son, who had negotiated it. As a matter of duty, the king was decorating the city for the marriage ceremony and acting in great earnestness to make it very successful. Water was sprinkled all over the streets and the city was cleansed very nicely. Since India is situated in the tropical zone, the atmosphere is always dry. Dust always accumulates on the streets and roads, so they must be sprinkled with water at least once a day, and in big cities like Calcutta, twice a day. The roads of Kundina were arrayed with colored flags and festoons. Where is it? Oh, sorry. The roads of Kundina were arrayed with colored flags and festoons, and gates were constructed at particular crossings. The whole city was decorated very nicely. The beauty of the city was enhanced by the inhabitants, both men and women, who were dressed in fresh, washed clothes and decorated with sandalwood pulp, pearl necklaces, and flower garlands. Incense burned everywhere, and the fragrances like aguru scented the air. Priests and brahmanas were sumptuously fed and, according to ritualistic ceremony, were given sufficient wealth and cows in charity. In this way, they were engaged in chanting Vedic hymns. The king's daughter Rukmini was exquisitely beautiful. She was very clean and had beautiful teeth. The auspicious sacred thread was tied on her waist. She was given various types of jewelry to wear and long silken cloth to cover the upper and lower parts of her body. Learned priests gave her protection by chanting mantras from the Samaved, Rigved, Yajurved. Then they chanted mantras from the Atharva Ved and offered oblations in the fire to pacify the influence of different stars. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Thank you,
We
Sanchita.
learn so much about the culture then, like from
Yes.
these Prabhupada's purports, like these are so important.
It is like literally bringing to our mind. We can just
We can visualize literally,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Like
That's the word.
women were given sacred thread. We didn't know that, like in those days, and so
And
many other things, yeah. And yeah, as Prabhupada mentioned, like, the roads, they get really like full of mud. So they still, their customs in villages, they sprinkle water morning and evening, like Sandhya Arati, they sprinkle water.
I was about to
Yeah.
say that. Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, I remember when we used to go to the villages and we see that sometimes in the evening because it's become so hot and sometimes they just kind of like put water on the road so that it just cools down and around those places where they live. So it's an amazing thing. So because it's the beautiful thing is like we can see that some of the practices that are happening even today, they just come from Dwapar Yuga. They're just coming from those ancient times of the ceremonies that are happening. Maybe to a certain reduced sense, but it was very vibrant. It's not like what we are believing, like, okay, India was like a very poor country and things like that. But if you see just even by the description, we can see like how opulent, rich and opulent the life was there in the Vedic times in India, in that part of the land which is called as Bharat. Such an amazing way. In fact, and Prabhupada, the way he has kind of described this entire thing is like so amazing. We can just visualize how beautiful it must have been. And also one thing that came to my mind is like the Brahmanas reciting from Samaveda, Rigveda, and Yajurveda. This is just amazing, isn't it? Because I remember sometime when Tirupati, like it was like completely drought, and they were just said like if you recite some slokas from these Vedas, then there's a chance that you may get rains during that time, and they had to just go and find out like anybody who's well versed in Vedas, and they couldn't find. Finally, of course, they just managed to get somebody. But we can see that in today's thing, it's such a rare thing that where you can find people who are well versed in Vedas. But over there, it's like part of the culture where when you say Brahmana, they're so well versed in Samveda, Rig Veda, and Yajurveda, and Atharveda. So we can find that even they were even chanting mantras from these Vedic this thing. So how auspicious and these mantras have a mystical this thing like actually power in the way they be recited by these brahmanas at that point of time. So yeah, this is amazing. I don't need to even mention also how it must have been. It's just visualizing in the way Mataji has just read this. King Bhishmaka was experienced in dealing with the brahmanas and priests when such ceremonies were held. He specifically honored the brahmanas by giving them large quantities of gold and silver, grain mixed with molasses, and cows decorated with clothes and ornaments. Damagosha, Shishupala's father, executed all kind of ritualistic performances to invoke good fortune for his son. Shishupala's father was known as Damagosha due to his superior ability to cut down unregulated citizens. Dama means curbing down, and Gosha means famous. And so he was famous for controlling the citizens. Dharmagosha thought that if Krishna came to disturb the marriage ceremony, he would certainly cut him down with his military power. Therefore, after performing the various auspicious ceremonies, Dharmagosha gathered his military divisions. He took many elephants garlanded with golden necklaces and many similarly decorated chariots and horses. It appeared that Dharmagosha, along with his son and other companions, was going to Kundina, not exactly to get Swishpala married, but mainly to fight. So the action begins wherever there's Krishna, there's action. And for Krishna, as we can see through all the chapters of Krishna Katha, everything that came his way. He was never worried. He was never anxious. He would just deal them just like how a mighty person would deal with just a small, tiny person. Like, so whether it is Putana, whether it's whether the Kamsa or anyone like that. So here we can find that all the arrangements are going from both the sides. So because we have Sushupala, whom actually they wanted to give Rukmini in marriage to. So even Sushupala's father was trying to make all the ritualistic arrangements. So as we can see, like he seems to be like someone who has got a very kind of a dogmatic kind of an attitude, someone who's very controlling and someone who's very regulating on his citizens. And he's very clear. So already the information would have gone that maybe if in case if Krishna comes, then he's being fully prepared. So now, as we've seen earlier, that Krishna is actually, along with the Brahmana, has gone in the chariot with 4 horses, and he's landed up in this place called Kundini. So even this Damagosha, Shishupala's father, is going there to not to get Shishupala married, but actually mainly to fight. So it's very interesting to see how the things are going to unfold. But we can see that in the culture, the Vedic culture in those times, that King Bhishmaka was also so experienced in all these things, like and how charitable they were, right? In those days, this is like charity in the mode of goodness, like giving to a brahmana. Because nowadays, sometimes we don't show any discrimination, right? If we think we want to be charitable, we may give even to an intoxicant guy some money if he doesn't have. We find those situations, isn't it? Sometimes you have even drug addicts and people who are into intoxicated, they just keep sometimes begging on this thing. And if you give them any money, they may take and just go and buy some drugs, or they could go and drink again alcohol. And by doing that, sometimes people may think that I'm helping that person, but actually you're doing something very, very this is charity in the mode of ignorance. And whatever that happens to that person, that karma will come onto you. So it's not that charity has to also be shown some discrimination. So charity here, which it's happening here, giving to the priests and brahmanas, it's in the mode of goodness, which is what Bhishmaka was doing. So but again, this is like all the Vedic traditions that were happening. As we can see, that Bhishmaka also is not so keen to give Rukmini in the hands of Shishupala, but he's just an obligation because he loves his son. Same like how Dhritarashtra loved all his Duryodhana and all his sons. I think this is something which is very common, isn't it? And it's interesting to know that even in those days also they had this kind of attachment where the father is always so attached to his son. We can see that even though, Duryodhana was insulting Draupadi and doing all kind of things, trying to, insult her and things like that. Even at that point of time, Dhritarashtra didn't come and stop Duryodhana, saying, "What are you doing? How could you do this to a lady?" But he didn't do it because out of love for his son. But by doing that, he was on the side of adharma, not dharma. So it's very important to be very clear that sometimes these attachments can come in the way, but our Krishna Katha, whether it is Mahabharata or whether it's Ramayana, is to say that whether you're on the right side of dharma or you're on the wrong side of dharma. You have great people like Bhishma, who are like one of the greatest people, but you see they were like on the wrong side of dharma. He was on the wrong side on the Kauravas, and finally he landed up on a bed of arrows. Similarly, we can find like Jatayu, who was fighting for Ram when Sita was being taken away by Ravanasara. But even though he lost the battle, but Jatayu died in the lap of Rama. So one person on the adharma side fighting adharma and one person fighting dharma. The person who was fighting on adharma side landed up in a bow of arrows, and someone like Jatayu, who was fighting for the Lord and fighting for Dharma, landed up in the lap of Ram before he died. So I think it's very important to understand the discriminate between, but sometimes because of these attachments, we actually land up being on the wrong side of Dharma. So that's one of the takeaways that we need to have. When King Bhishmaka learned that Damagosha and his party were arriving, he left the city to receive them. Obviously, when in-laws come, they do that, isn't it? When the other side when the bridegroom side come. Outside the city gates were many gardens where guests were welcome to stay. In the Vedic system of marriage, the bride's father received a large party of the bridegroom and accommodates them in a suitable place for 2 or 3 days until the marriage ceremony is performed. The party led by Damagosha contained thousands of men, among whom the prominent kings and personalities were Jarasandha, Jantavakra, Vidurata, and Paundraka. And it was an open secret that Rukmini was meant to be married to Krishna, but her elder brother, Rukmi, has arranged for her marriage to Shishupala. There were also some whispering about the rumor that Rukmini had sent a message to Krishna. Therefore, the soldiers suspected that Krishna might cause a disturbance by attempting to kidnap Rukmini. Even though they were not without fear. They were all prepared to give Krishna a good fight to prevent the girl from being taken away. Sri Balarama received the news that Krishna had left for Kundina, accompanied only by a Brahmana, and that Sushupala was there with a large number of soldiers. Balarama suspected that they would attack Krishna, and thus, out of great affection for his brother, he took strong military divisions of chariot, infantry, horses, and elephants and went to the presence of Kundina. So you can see that how the action is unfolding, isn't it? So it's bringing to light, like, this is the normal thing which happens even today when a bride, so they kind of like they host the reception of the bridegrooms, and they're coming over there and taking, which is a typical. So what we are following even now is like the Vedic system where the brides usually take care of the bridegrooms when they come and things like that. So, but you can see by the association of Damagosha, like, the kind of personalities who are actually there, right? Jarasandha, whom Krishna actually fought and defeated about 17 times. And he's a friend. So you can know a person by the company he keeps, isn't it? So here you can see that what kind of a person Shishupala is, because his closest friends are people like Dantavakra and Jarasandha and Vidurata. And somewhere I think it seems to be that even though Rukmini has done this very confidentially, that she's given this letter to the Brahmana to give it to Krishna, it seems to be like somewhere the question paper, like how the question papers get leaked, somewhere the information seems to have leaked. Some gossip mongering must have happened, that maybe that Rukmini has sent somebody to Krishna. So I'm sure Rukmini would have tried her best to do it in most confidential way, but you never know, right? There will always be, in those days also, there were spies who were also constantly checking out, like on any enemies who are coming in, or anybody who's like, while they're living in the kingdom and all this. So I'm sure like at that point of time, they must have, got a scent of like something is not going right. And that's the reason why you can feel that everybody's totally prepared. Damagosha is prepared from his end as well. But Krishna just went on a chariot. Actually, he was not going like with the big army and all. But here we can see that Krishna's brother Balaram receives this message, and he's kind of like, obviously he has affection for his brother. And we can see that earlier also when he was fighting with Jarasandha, there was Balaram, and both of them they just left from there and they just went up the mountain and just jumped from there, right? When Jarasandha was trying to attack them. So you can see that these beautiful, pastimes where Krishna and Balaram are together whenever they're facing these kind of, demoniac people. So yeah, we can see from Balaram that he also suspected that Krishna would be attacked. So a kind of like a situation is coming up where Balaram is taking his complete army and over there, and then we find Damagosha, he's preparing from his side as well. So everything is happening in such a way that they are being mentally prepared that any time Krishna may come, and he may kind of disrupt. We should be prepared for that. And you can understand, like when you have demonic people coming together, Jarasandha and Shishupala and everyone, what kind of a situation must have been. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Rukmini was expecting Krishna to arrive. But when neither he nor the Brahmana who took her message appeared, she was full of anxiety and began to think how unfortunate she was. There is only one night between today and my marriage day, and still neither the Brahmana nor Shyamsundara have returned. I cannot ascertain any reason for this. Having little hope, she thought that perhaps Krishna had found reason to become dissatisfied and had rejected her fair proposal. As a result, the Brahmana might have become disappointed and not come back. Although she was thinking of various causes for the delay, she expected them both at any moment. So you can find that Rukmini is going through mixed emotions. On one side, because and we can imagine the situation, right? Somebody is getting married the very next day, and she's expecting someone to come, like Krishna, to come and just take her away from there. And when Krishna is not appearing, so because Rukmini has made up her mind, she's so much in love with Krishna, having heard from the Narada. And this is something, another important takeaway for us, right? How did Rukmini develop so much of love for Krishna? Because she was doing Shravanam. She was listening to Narada Muni, who was giving her so much of a delight about the beautiful activities of Krishna in Vrindavan and things like that. So Rukmini is so she knows that Krishna is the supreme Lord, and she knows that Krishna is like so wonderful, and the kind of that Krishna is so magnanimous that he can defeat anyone. He's so brilliant in many ways. So she's heard so much that she's made up her mind at any time Krishna is the one whom she's going to marry. So now and when you have your mind fixed so much on Krishna, now she's a bit disappointed, thoughts are going in her mind. Maybe something must have happened. Krishna must have decided, maybe I'll become dissatisfied or something with the proposal. Maybe he's not happy with that, because normally in those days you wouldn't find a lady writing a letter to someone like this, to the man like this. So maybe for some reason, and maybe the Brahmana. So it happens, right? Even for us also, when we are looking at something very positive, and when things are not happening, our mind starts reeling with a lot of negativity, isn't it? Or why this has happened, maybe something is going to happen. We start imagining things in our mind. So here we can see that she's going through mixed emotion. On one way, she's anxious that they now haven't turned up, and on the other side, she's worried that, and some way she thinks that maybe they may arrive at any time. Rukmini further thought that demigods such as Lord Brahma, Shiva, and goddess Durga might have been displeased. It is generally said that the demigods become angry when not properly worshipped. For instance, when Indra found that the inhabitants of Vrindavan were not worshipping him, Krishna having stopped Indra Yajna, he became angry and wanted to chastise him. Thus, Rukmini thought that since she did not worship Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma very much, they might have become angry and tried to frustrate her plans. Similarly, she thought that the goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, might have taken the side of her husband. Lord Shiva is known as Rudra, and his wife is known as Rudrani. Rudrani and Rudra refer to those who are accustomed of putting others in distress to cry forever. Rukmini was thinking of goddess Durga as Girija, the daughter of the Himalayan mountains. The Himalayan mountains are very cold and hard, and she thought of the goddess Durga as hard-hearted and cold. In her anxiety to see Krishna, Rukmini, who was after all still a child, thought this way about the different demigods. The gopis worship goddess Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband. Similarly, Rukmini was thinking of the various type of demigods, not for the material benefit, but in respect to Krishna. Praying to the demigods to achieve the favor of Krishna is not irregular, and Rukmini was fully absorbed in the thoughts of Krishna. So you can see like so many multiple things that we can grow from here. So Rukmini, because she's having those mixed emotions of thinking negatively, also she's also thinking maybe all this is happening because the demigods like Lord Shiva and Durga and Brahma, maybe they're not happy with whatever she done. And we see that in the earlier chapters also, like how Indra was so angry when the people of Vrindavan didn't worship him, and he tried to lash out all kind of rains, and that's when Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill at the age of 7, isn't it, and gave them shelter, and then also told his father Nanda Maharaj that from now on you're not going to do Indra Yajna, and then it's only going to be Govardhan Yajna. So all those things we have seen here, but Rukmini is going through her kind of a thought process, like way thinking about Lord Shiva, and maybe they were not happy with her, and that's the reason that because of she didn't worship them properly and things like that. So we can find that, and we've seen earlier also, right? Gopis, they were always worshiping Katyayani in order to get Krishna. So one thing is very clear is whether it's the gopis or whether we can say Rukmini, the center point was Krishna. So even if they're worshipping Durga Devi or whether they worship Katyayani, the main motive or the main reason for that is to gain Krishna. So which is fine. But the main objective is Krishna. So as long as we can keeping Krishna in the center. For example, we all know that and Ramnath Prabhu also did mention to us like Gopeshwar Mahadev. Whenever we go to Vrindavan, we should take the darshan of Gopeshwar Mahadev and take his blessing before we actually go do the parikrama of Vrindavan. So it is very important in order to just please even the devatas like Lord Shiva and Lord Durga as well. And even though she pacified herself by thinking that the time for Govinda to arrive has not yet expired, Rukmini felt that she was hoping against hope, not expressing her mind to anyone. She simply shed tears, unobserved by others, and when her tears became more forceful, she closed her eyes in helplessness. While Rukmini was in such deep thought, auspicious symptoms appeared in different parts of her body. Trembling began to occur in her left eyelid, arm, and thigh. When trembling occurs in these parts of the body, it's an auspicious sign indicating that something lucrative can be expected. So it is beautiful, isn't it? Because I think I'm sure like many of you would be aware of this, like, when the eyes, like, when they kind of like flicker a bit, you think like something auspicious is going to happen. We all have that, but all these things are actually happening from the Vedic times as well. That's a feeling that was the kind of a thing that was observed in those times as well. So Rukmini is still having some kind of like, she's hoping against hope. So she's kind of, you can feel like what she's going through in her mind, because this is something very confidential. She can't speak to her father. She can't speak to her brother, no one. And so she's all by herself. She's simply in tears because she can't express these feelings with anyone, because already the marriage arrangements are happening. So which means that everybody is like very clear that she's getting married to Shishpala, except for herself, whom she doesn't want to get married out there. So that's very, so you can imagine somebody in such kind of situation going to a deep thought. But at the same time, we can see like there is some auspicious signs which are happening, where trembling of the left eyelid and arm and thigh. So this is so amazing to know that in those days also, these were like auspicious signs actually. So everything actually is so interesting to know that a lot of these things are coming from Vedic times. Just then, Rukmini, full of anxiety, saw the Brahmana messenger. Krishna, being the super soul of all the living beings, could understand Rukmini's anxiety. Therefore, he sent the Brahmana inside the palace to let her know that he has arrived. When Rukmini saw the Brahmana, she could understand the auspicious trembling of her body and immediately became elated. She smiled and inquired whether Krishna had already come. The Brahmana replied that the son of Yadu dynasty, Sri Krishna, has arrived. He further encouraged her by saying that Krishna had promised to carry her away without fail. Rukmini was so elated by the Brahmana's message that she wanted to give him in charity everything she possessed. However, finding nothing suitable for presentation, she simply offered him a respectful obeisances. The significance of offering respectful obeisances to a superior is that the one offering obeisances is obliged to the respectful person. In other words, Rukmini implied that she would remain ever grateful to the Brahmana. Anyone who gets the favor of the goddess of fortune as this Brahmana is without doubt always happy in material opulence. So we can see the action finally happening in such a way that Krishna is now come to take away Rukmini, and the Brahmana has now entered, and now we can see Rukmini is like fully joyful and she's fully elated. She already knows that Krishna is someone who's very magnanimous and very brave, and someone who has fought against Jarasandha, fought against Kamsa. So she knows that Krishna is like supremely powerful, all powerful, right? He's Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. That's why we say Bhagavan Sri Krishna. He's wealthy and super powerful and everything. So here the Brahmana is kind of replied. So this is making Rukmini so elated with the Brahmana's message that in those days, the culture is that when somebody is like a Brahmana, especially, they're coming and doing something for them. And when you want to show your gratitude towards the Brahmana, you kind of like give them a lot of gifts and things like that. But here in this case, he has just offered a respectful obeisances. And also, I think, in a way, because this is something which is very confidential thing that's happening, maybe that could be another reason also, that offering something openly in the public. So, but anyways, the most important thing is Krishna has arrived, and he sent the Brahmana to let her know that he has arrived. So we can see that now how the situation is. In one moment, Rukmini was in anxiety, she was losing hope, but somewhere again we can see auspicious signs are coming. So the auspicious signs were not wrong, as you can see that now the Brahmana and Krishna has arrived. And when King Bhishmaka heard that King and Balaram, Krishna and Balaram had arrived, he invited them to see the marriage ceremony of his daughter. Immediately, he arranged to receive them along with their soldiers in a suitable garden house. As was the Vedic custom, the king offered Krishna and Balaram honey and fresh washed garments. He was hospitable not only to Krishna, Balaram, and other kings such as Jarasandha, but also to many other kings and princes according to their personal strength, age, and material possessions. Out of curiosity and eagerness, the people of Kundina assembled before Krishna and Balaram to drink the nectar of their beauty. With tearful eyes, they offered Krishna and Balaram their silent respects. They were very much pleased, considering Krishna is Lord Krishna, the suitable match for Rukmini. They were so eager to unite Krishna and Rukmini that they prayed to the personality of Godhead. Our dear Lord, if we have performed any pious activities with which you are satisfied, kindly be merciful upon us and accept the hand of Rukmini. It appears that Rukmini was a very popular princess, and all the citizens, out of intense love for her, prayed for her best fortune. In the meantime, Rukmini, being very nicely dressed and protected by bodyguards, came out of the palace to visit the temple of Ambika, goddess Durga. So we can see that Krishna, when Rukmini was sent a letter to Krishna also, she was kind of like anticipating how the things will unfold and to avoid any bloodshed when Krishna comes, and when to actually kind of come and kidnap her, so that when Rukmini is going to this temple, in those days the kings used to have their own temples where the daughters could go and worship, and where the family could go and worship and come. So that was the kind of situation. So she was actually already giving her thought process to Krishna, that try to do it without any bloodshed kind of thing, so that she can come and he can come and take her away. So we can see that King Bhishmaka, obviously he's a king, so he's offering all his kind of like the royal arrangements in those days to all the people. And now that Krishna and Balaram had come, so he's giving them their a similar thing also. As we already discussed, Bhishmaka is also, he's not so much in favor of Shishpala, but it's because only of his son that he's having this obligation to give his daughter in the marriage of with Shishpal. But as we can see that he has given the similar kind of hospitality to Krishna and Balaram as well. But again, we can see that there were other people like Jarasandha and and all these people in their association along with Shishpala as well. And we can see that even the people of Kundina, so even I'm sure like in those days, they must have heard about Krishna and Balaram, they must have heard about Vrindavan, and they must have heard about how powerful Krishna is, because Jarasandha, whom Krishna has defeated, is there in that marriage. So they would have heard, all of them would have heard that Jarasandha has been defeated by Krishna so many times. So inside, they were all just having this eagerness that Krishna and Rukmini should be united, and they were just praying that something like this happens. And so it's very beautiful to see, like if you visualize and see, the people are coming to there for the marriage, but they're inside, they're all wishing that Krishna and Rukmini, they get married, and they're just praying for that. And we can see that how Rukmini is, someone who's so loved by it, because obviously when you have a princess, like, everybody would be looking forward to see, like, the princess of the kingdom getting married, and everybody's praying for her, but they all inside somewhere, they just want to make sure, or just praying that they, Krishna and Rukmini go together. And in the meanwhile, Rukmini, nicely dressed as bodyguards, so we can imagine Rukmini, the goddess of fortune, just walking there with the bodyguards and going towards the temple. How beautiful she must have been looking. But now she's very elevated. She's very kind of like, all the anxiety is gone. She's got the positive signs. So I'm sure, like, when she's going, she's seeing that whatever she's written in the letter is now slowly unfolding. That action plan is being unfolding now. So I just want to stop at this, even though I'm just like so eager to just keep going on. As you can see, like how beautiful this love story is happening, where Rukmini writes a letter and the Brahmana takes and gives it to Krishna. Krishna is reading the letter. And even though he's Atmarama, at the same time, you can see throughout Krishna Katha, he's always reciprocating. All the time he's reciprocating. Anybody who loves Krishna, he's reciprocating. Ananyas chintayantoma ye jana paryupashite tesham nitya bhayuktanam yogashemam vahamyaham. Whoever is engaged in devotion towards Krishna, I also reciprocate. Ye yatamam prapajyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. According to your level of surrender, I reciprocate accordingly. So here we can see that Rukmini is showing her endeavor by writing a letter and with all anxiety. And Krishna is sitting in the heart of Rukmini because he is the Supreme Lord, and he can understand the anxiety that she is going through. and he's reciprocating her feelings. So this is the kind of a love that Krishna is ready to go anywhere. Like he's taken a chariot to go and pick up Rukmini. Similarly, when we develop that kind of a love for Krishna, then we'll be able to have these experiences and we'll see Krishna reciprocating. प्रेमाञ्जनाचुरित भक्ति विलोचनेन सन्ता सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्याम सुन्दर चिन्त गुणा स्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. Where Lord Brahma is praying to Krishna, that people, that pure devotees of Krishna who have love for Krishna within their heart will be able to see Krishna within their heart and everywhere, wherever they go. So they have developed that kind of a love. So here we can find through this Krishna Katha that Rukmini has that kind of a love for Krishna. So we can find that how Krishna is also reciprocating by coming over there to take her away from that place, even though there are mighty kings around, and he's not at all disturbed or he's not at all worried about defeating any of one of them. That is the Supreme Lord Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So I just want to stop over here and just take any comments, any corrections, any realizations. I'm so excited. I can't just say like how beautiful it is, this beautiful divine love between Rukmini and Krishna, Sri Krishna, Bhagavan. That's amazing, isn't it? Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna, Maga Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Ramnath Prabhuji. Would you want to?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Any comments or anything, Prabhuji, to add?
Well, I mean, we haven't gotten to the real action yet, where Rukmini does her Durga Puja and then gets kidnapped. But yeah, that's next week.
Prabhuji, you revealed the suspense.
I was going to say that. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
But we can imagine, we can expect that's bound to happen. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, for me, it feels so joyful to just see like how Krishna, whatever he does, everything is transcendental and everything is joyful. That
Prabhu, one small statement from me that Krishna never always take care of his devotee. He will, if you see here, when he was always wanting Krishna to be his beloved, so he took all the pains to reach Vidarbha, and then he's always reciprocating devotees' love.
Absolutely, that's beautiful. Bhakti Vatsala, he is always a loving listening towards his devotees, isn't it? He's always reciprocating and always thinking of the welfare of his devotees. Yes, Prabhuji, that's a wonderful thing. That's the beauty about Krishna Katha, is wonderful takeaways, isn't it? How the Brahmanas were respected in those days, how knowledgeable they were, and how the kings used to do the Vedic marriages at that point of time, how the kind of elaborate arrangement Shantish Mata just mentioned about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, on that note, I read somewhere and I also heard, like, how the Vedas, they're considered as Shrutis, so how it, came through word of mouth, and people used to, Brahmanas used to remember it and then, pass it on. So in that note, like, the acharyas who thought, their disciples are capable enough to remember the 4 Vedas. So they would ask them to remember the 4 Vedas, and they had this surname of Chaturvedi. You must have heard like Chaturvedi. Yeah, they could remember 4 Vedas, and if they could only remember 2, they were called Trivedis. And like 2, and if it's 2, then it's Dvivedi. So like that. But like we still have, I mean, now when we try to reflect on that, we still have those surnames. But somehow, like more as we go into Kali Yuga, these tremendous power of remembering through Shruti, it's got contaminated because people are not so like pious. And that ritual of remembering the Vedas has like really gone, and we only know these Brahmanas by surnames, but like in our generation, that knowledge has no, until we make our own endeavors, like to go through and read the Vedas. I mean, it has not come out, and that's the main reason for the deterioration of our civilization. Anything Vedic, like how the Vedic things we hear, but that thing is like gone, like because how the Westerners and the Mughals, they came and they thought it's a good way, like even one of them, like Max Muller, said something really bad about the Vedas, like, it's like kind of shit of their civilization of Hindu and all kind of things. So I mean, that's how people thought, oh, it's the Indians also started feeling that, it's something derogatory not to know the Vedas is a good thing, not to know a culture and learn English language instead, and suited and booted and the whole culture. Like, yeah, it's like when we have received it, it's like in so much of mess. But all glory to Srila Prabhupada that he has tried to glorify and bring it back by translating them in English, and here we are, like able to recite and read and associate and
Absolutely.
Share the knowledge.
Absolutely. What Prabhupada has given us this beautiful version of Bhagavad Gita and Krishna Katha, and translating all these books is so amazing, actually, to even realize. And I think that's the most important thing, to realize the kind of sacrifices Prabhupada has done to give us this knowledge. And so fortunate, Prabhuji, we are just listening and we're having your association, Ramnath Prabhuji. Lord Prabhu, you have had the personal experiences with Prabhupada, and here we are just talking about Prabhupada. How fortunate we feel, to be having someone.
Prabhupada's association is in his books.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhupada would mention that. Don't think I'm gone. I'm always way through the books. Definitely, Prabhuji. And it's so interesting to know that as the Vedas and everything, as people, memory has gone down and people can't recite the Vedas and all that. So Krishna knew that in Kali Yuga that people can't remember so much. So
we'll see, how Rukmini became a worshiper of Durga, but in the Krishna book, we haven't gotten to it yet. Prabhupada is explaining that her form of the worship of Durga was okay. Whereas other people who worship Durga is not okay. So these are subtleties, but yeah, we'll get into it, I think, next week. A little more discussion on that point, because we'll see, especially it's misunderstood by the most devotees, because Krishna condemns worship of devatas, demigods, in Bhagavad Gita, but it's not completely forbidden. That's the whole point. And then it confuses the devotees. Well, if it's not completely forbidden, then they want to get involved sometimes in demigod worship, but most times devotees get involved in demigod worship, but still they're doing it, based on Hindu misunderstanding. But anyway, we'll see actually how Rukmini was meditating on Krishna, praying to Krishna, but not only that, praying to Durga, full puja to Durga.
The main reason for the worship is Krishna.
And then her desire after Krishna, that's the point. That's the point. Yes. Whereas the worshippers of Durga, or what goes on now, it's like, they want to be a good Hindu, worship Durga, but it's all for mundane material desires. And that's obviously, that's what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita is not good. But anyway, so Rukmini here she's going to be doing her Durga Puja. And Prabhupada also mentions the gopis doing their Katyayani Durga Puja, but very, very different mentality. At the end of Kartik, we got the beginning of Kartik, so in 1 month's time, end of Kartik would be Katyayani Vrat. And sometimes devotees say, yes, they want to worship Durga, and I say, well, are you willing to do Katyayani Vrat like the gopis? And they don't even know what that is, which is extremely difficult. Anyway, I don't want to get into it now. The actual worship of Durga, according to the actual standards given to us in Bhagavatam, are very, very difficult. Anyway, Rukmini also, she'll go through with her assistants, her worship of Durga. And yeah, spoiler alert, after she worships Durga, immediately her desires fulfill. Krishna comes, kidnaps her.
Yeah. Even if the demigods come and they just come when your purpose is Krishna, then they they bless.
Yeah. But it was, see, there has to be the balance. Worship of Krishna and worship of the devotee of Krishna goes together. That's our philosophy in Chaitanya Vaishnavism. We don't worship Krishna alone. We always worship Krishna along with his devotee. And when we understand that right balance, then that makes the potency of Krishna consciousness so much quicker and more effective. So that's our philosophy. This is how it works. And anyway, we'll find out more next week.
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji. Prabhu, anything you want to add before we close? Amaga Prabhuji, anything you want to add? Okay. Amaga Prabhu has given a nice thing that he loved this Krishna Katha. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, I want to just thank everyone for your association, and it's been really wonderful. I was so joyed when I was just reading this, and it's so wonderful. And we're going to continue with this chapter next week itself. So it's wonderful. We are entering into the Damodara month, and we're going to be reading about how Krishna kidnaps Rukmini. I'm sure this is going to be going to remember this for a long time. So yeah, I want to thank everyone for giving your association. Feel extremely blessed to be in the association of devotees like you. So thank you very much.
Before we finish, everybody, let's please unmute and say 3 loud Hari Bols for Prabhu.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very beautiful.
Thank you, Nagaraj Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. I know you stayed back over the night, Nagaraj Prabhu. So kind of you. And thank you, everyone. We will again see next week, next Thursday. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavavindaki ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.